Operation Starfish Prime. In 1962, during the height of the Cold War, the United States launched a nuclear bomb into space. Yes, you read that right. Operation Starfish Prime was a high-altitude nuclear test designed to study the effects of nuclear explosions on the Earth's magnetosphere. The test resulted in a massive electromagnetic pulse, EMP, that knocked out streetlights and radios in Hawaii, nearly 900 miles away from the detonation site. The blast also created artificial auroras visible as far away as New Zealand. While the experiment provided valuable data, it also demonstrated the potential dangers of space-based nuclear detonations, leading to the signing of the Outer Space Treaty in 1967. The Iceberg Aircraft Carrier. During World War II, the British had a wild idea. What if they could build an unsinkable aircraft carrier made out of ice? This wasn't just a fantasy. Project Habakkuk was an actual military project intended to construct a floating airbase using pykrete, a mixture of ice and wood pulp. The theory was that pykrete would be stronger and slower to melt than pure ice. A small-scale prototype was even built in Canada's Patricia Lake. However, the project was scrapped due to logistical difficulties and the advancement of conventional aircraft carriers. The Ghost Army. The Ghost Army was a top-secret unit of the U.S. Army during World War II, tasked with deception operations. They used inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, and sound effects to trick the enemy into thinking large military forces were stationed in specific locations. These tactics were crucial in misleading German forces before the D-Day invasion and in other key battles. The unit's operations remained classified for decades, but their efforts saved countless lives by confusing the enemy and diverting troops away from real battlefields. The Soviet dog bombs. Desperate times call for desperate measures. During World War II, the Soviet Union trained dogs to run under enemy tanks with bombs strapped to their backs. The plan was that the dogs would crawl under German tanks, triggering the explosive payload. However, the program had major flaws. Many dogs were frightened by the battlefield chaos and often ran back toward their handlers, causing devastating friendly fire incidents. Additionally, the dogs had been trained using Soviet tanks, so they often targeted their own side by mistake. Eventually, the program was abandoned. The CIA's mind control program, MKUltra, was the CIA's infamous attempt at developing mind control techniques during the Cold War. Conducted from the 1950s to the 1970s, this top-secret program involved experiments with psychedelic drugs like LSD, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation. The goal was to develop methods for controlling human behavior and extracting information from unwilling subjects. Many of these tests were conducted on unwitting individuals, including military personnel and civilians, leading to severe psychological and physical harm. The program was exposed in the 1970s, leading to congressional hearings, but the full extent of its operations remains unknown. The bat bombs of World War II. Before the atomic bomb, the U.S. military considered an alternative: bat bombs. The idea was to strap small incendiary devices to bats and release them over Japanese cities. The bats would roost in buildings, and the timed explosives would detonate, causing widespread fires. The concept was actually tested and showed promise, but by the time it was ready for deployment, the atomic bomb had already been developed, making the project obsolete. The Philadelphia Experiment. According to conspiracy theories, the U.S. Navy allegedly conducted a secret experiment in 1943 that made a ship, the USS Eldridge, disappear. The story goes that scientists were attempting to develop a cloaking device, but instead accidentally teleported the ship. Some even claim that when it reappeared, crew members were fused into the metal of the ship. While there's no solid evidence that this ever happened, the legend of the Philadelphia Experiment continues to be one of the most persistent military conspiracies. Project A119, the plan to nuke the moon. During the Cold War, the U.S. military actually considered detonating a nuclear bomb on the moon. Known as Project A119, the plan was to show American military dominance to the Soviet Union by creating an explosion visible from Earth. Scientists, including a young Carl Sagan, were involved in the project's research, but it was ultimately abandoned in favor of more practical space exploration efforts. Had it gone through, the moon's surface might have been permanently altered by human-made destruction. Acoustic Kitty, the CIA's spy cat. In the 1960s, the CIA spent millions of dollars attempting to turn cats into spies. Operation Acoustic Kitty involved surgically implanting microphones and radio transmitters inside a cat's body so it could eavesdrop on Soviet conversations. The first field test was a disaster. The cat was released near a Soviet compound, but was immediately hit by a taxi. The project was deemed impractical and scrapped, but it remains one of the most bizarre intelligence experiments ever attempted. The tinfoil earthquake machine. In the early 20th century, famed inventor Nikola Tesla claimed he had developed a device that could generate artificial earthquakes. According to Tesla, his small oscillating device, when attached to a building, could match the structure's resonant frequency and shake it apart. He allegedly tested the device in his own laboratory, causing nearby buildings to tremble before smashing it to prevent further destruction. While modern science suggests this claim may have been exaggerated, the idea that Tesla may have come close to creating a real-life earthquake machine remains intriguing.